Welcome to this webinar on 6 essential marketing skills every L&D practitioner needs. You're joined by me, Ashley Sinclair. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager here at Litmos Heroes. And really just wanted to spend some time with you guys today to give you a little bit more insight into marketing as a whole. But in my 5 years here in the learning technologies industry and marketing, I've really encountered a lot of parity and similarities between L&D and marketing. So thought it might be worth actually having a conversation with you guys and showing you a little bit more about what it is and how we can start to use some marketing techniques within L&D to start increasing engagement and get your learners more connected. So before we go any further, just a little bit about me. As I said, I've been in the learning technologies industry for about 5 years now. I've had the privilege of working at 4 different learning technologies companies. That's not because I'm super jumpy, I promise. Some of them have been the result of acquisitions as well. But I have encountered a lot of change in that time and obviously seen the way that learning technologies and learning and development departments do things in a lot of different guises. So I hope I feel like I know what I'm talking about a little bit here. And as I said before, you know, every time I'm reading things around marketing blogs, it never fails to surprise me how these could be applied into an L&D context. So let's get started. Before we do, I just wanted to give you a couple of housekeeping points just so you know that this webinar is going to be recorded so that I can obviously forever be frozen in time as marketing guru, obviously. And if you do have questions, feel free to pop them into the chat or questions area and I'll pick them up at the end and we can do a bit of a Q&A if you do have some burning questions. So let's get started. Marketing is a contest for people's attention. That's one of the wisest things I've ever read about my job. I think it's entirely accurate, but isn't L&D fighting the same battle? After all, we're all both aiming to engage and drive interest with a potentially distracted, detached audience. And ultimately, we're really looking to instigate a change in behavior, whether that's to come to my new website to buy something snazzy and new, or maybe come to visit your LMS or complete a new piece of compliance training or do some onboarding training. Instigating a change in behavior is a really nice idea, isn't it? Wouldn't we all love to have that happen in some wonderful alternate universe where your learners love training and post things like this magical thing on LinkedIn? I just wanted to show you this is something a customer of ours, one of their learners. I didn't Photoshop this, I promise. This guy at Misguided loved his GDPR training so much that he posted something on his own social media. Yeah, I thought I was in the Twilight Zone too, and perhaps showing my age with that reference. Now, I'm a realist, and I know that most of you wish your learners were that engaged, but realistically, we know they're not. Chances are you've attended this webinar in the hopes of learning some new ways to engage them, but where on earth do you actually even start? In my opinion, modern learners require modern approaches. An article I recently read said in 2018, marketers should focus on anticipating user questions, needs, and emotions in order to engage them. So arguably, L&D should be doing the same thing then, right? If you really want to get under the skin of your learner's mindset, the same way marketers do with their target audiences, then there are several key things that you must do in order to really leverage marketing techniques to make your training interventions even more powerful, even more useful, and more appropriate for your employees. Now, there's a caveat here. I do warn you, I love data. My marketing is pretty much based in the principles of data, and I believe it to really be the fundamental part of good marketing. So strap in, we're in for a data-driven ride. For the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to give you guys a clear approach littered with some tips and ideas along the way for how to produce more data-driven, timely interactions with your staff that will not only drive engagement, but will proactively work towards building a positive culture of training in your business. And if you're lucky, you might even generate advocates of your training too, like the good old Glenn from Misguided. A girl can dream, right? So, before we get started, I just wanted, sorry, I skipped a slide there, my bad. No, I haven't. So I just wanted to ask you guys a quick poll quickly. How many systems do your current learners currently have touch points with? Let me just get this poll started. If you guys can just start doing that when you have a spare chance. Do you have an LMS, maybe an intranet, maybe a HR system, maybe more, all working in silo of one another? Let's see how many systems you contend with, and I'll kind of explain why I'm asking this shortly. Wow, gosh, these are some staggering results, guys. Okay, I'll just leave it open for a couple more seconds here just to give any stragglers a chance to submit. Okay. Great. So about 80% of you voted there. And what we're seeing is that 11% of you only have one system. 37% of you guys have 5 different systems that your learners are currently engaging with. 16% have 4. 23% have 3. I mean, you know, the minority of you have only one system in place. The reason I'm asking you guys this is I really want to talk about unifying your systems to create one single learner view. You're probably wondering why I'm talking about unifying technology when you're expecting to talk about marketing skills and tips. But I really promise you this is a foundational, fundamental aspect to any data-driven marketing function. And therefore, if we're applying this same logic, it's absolutely critical to achieving good results in L&D too. Good quality data is the linchpin of almost everything I'm going to talk about here and after. And getting it in all in one place is just the beginning. Don't get me wrong, I've worked in marketing departments where we have an email marketing system that's siloed from our CRM, data systems are siloed from insight systems, and analytics systems are all separate too. It's an absolute mess. I'm sure you know, those of you who have your 5 systems in place, nothing talks to each other, and I've spent countless hours spending far too much time just trying to understand what the heck is going on in my marketing function and whether anything I actually did resulted in any positive business impact. But I'll tell you what, when I did know the impact of my efforts, or when I worked in places where those insights were easier to get a hold of, wow, did my marketing approaches and subsequent conversions thrive. If you want me to remove the marketing jargon, translation, we sold more stuff. Does any of that sound familiar to you guys? Have you ever asked yourself, did my learners really learn anything? Are you just throwing stuff at the proverbial wall, waiting to see what sticks without even really knowing why it stuck or how indeed to make more stuff stick? Try saying that 10 times fast, make more stuff stick. I can do it about twice. So first step in your marketing journey, if you want to leverage and engage your learners better, is all about removing siloed data, removing those systems that you have, those 5 systems that 37% of you are struggling with. It's about time we stop this. Siloed data makes everything very, very difficult. But by amalgamating your systems, or at the very least, getting them to talk to one another using things like APIs, and so many systems have APIs these days. You know, if you have a smart IT team, you can really work with them and get these systems to start working a little bit better with one another. You're really starting to take the first step in gleaning critical information about your employees, what they do, how they consume information, how they're engaging with your content. And this is absolutely 100% critical to the success of what we'll discuss later. But this is where you start. This is your foundation, and it will either make or break your L&D strategies if you want data and insight to be an integral part of your approach, which they really do need to be if you want to be successful. So I've tried to kind of break this down into why I think unifying systems is really integral for this, but I've broken it down into a couple of little key bullet points. So obviously, first thing for you guys is this is going to save a lot of time. I don't expect you guys have single sign-on for those 5 systems. If you do, at least that's a great step, but chances are you're spending an absolute ton of time doing admin that you shouldn't need to be doing just to understand what your learners are doing, whether they've actually even completed training. It's absolutely madness. So if you can look at starting to unify your systems, get them to communicate better, yay, you have more time to do things that you actually like to do and do more of your L&D things, which is great. On top of that, it provides you with critical data, which I'll touch on a little bit later in the presentation, but this is all about giving you more insight, all about allowing you to better understand your audience, allowing you to understand what your learners are doing and how you can start to be in the places they are and create content that speaks to them in a way that's appropriate and meets their needs and expectations. And finally, it streamlines the entire L&D function. It really provides you with a critical and clear view of learner touch points across the business, which I think we all would really like a little bit more of. In marketing, a single customer view is absolutely critical if you're trying to be smart about how you engage with your audiences. And I really do believe that this same sentiment applies to L&D. Locked in and siloed data means less personalized experiences and ultimately less relevant training interventions with your employees. Siloed data is killing the learner experience and almost completely stymies your ability as an L&D practitioner to deliver timely, relevant, and useful information to staff. Siloed data is the enemy to any insightful marketing or indeed L&D function, especially one that's using multiple channels to reach their audience. Next, big data and personalization. So let's go down the wonderful world of happiness where all of your systems are talking to each other, and you have either one system, or you've amalgamated all your other systems, or you've decided to dump them all and get something new that actually works for you. Be that as it may. If you successfully manage to unify all of your systems with one another, then you're probably going to realize straight away that you have a lot of data, like a lot. So much data. What do you actually do with this data? Now, resist the urge to put it in the bin, which I confess I have considered doing many times myself since the new GDPR regulations are coming in a few months. But I promise you, there is a few gems in there. Have you ever asked yourself, do you actually know who you're trying to reach? Like, do you really, 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 really know? Yeah, okay, we know it's your learners. But do you even know what they like, what they hate, what they want, what they need? Do you know what motivates them? Do you even know their pain points or challenges? It's time to really get under the skin of your audience, and big data will help you do that. In marketing, we're targeting specific audience types. We build personas, which use a combination of assumptions and data to profile the audience. We generally focus on things like common pain points and motivators for the audience, which help to inform us about the direction of our marketing and subsequent content strategies. This ensures the content we produce resonates with the audience and also talks to them in a way that makes sense. So just as marketers are profiling their audiences to produce more targeted content, so should you be profiling your learners to better understand what motivates them, what learning has been effective and why, as well as understanding generational divides in learner pools and how that might impact the way you deliver training. This is where key data segmentation is important. In marketing, it's so vital that we're talking to specific pain points of our audience, which of course is going to vary significantly depending on the personas that we've created. This helps immensely with personalization and, in my opinion, the biggest thing of all, which is creating a sense of utility. Always fulfilling the concept of what's in it for me. For example, when I'm devising a new piece of content or planning new campaigns, I try to not produce anything that's not useful to my audience. For example, this webinar, I wouldn't have developed this webinar if I didn't think that there was an audience out there of L&D people who want to make the most of marketing, understand that it's perhaps becoming a part of L&D, but don't really know how to actually deal with it yet. Big data can seem really daunting at first. I absolutely understand that, but it's about breaking it down and really just segmenting it down and making it more consumable and bite-sized for you. And don't underestimate the value of a pivot table to see whether segments are large enough. I love pivot tables. I love Excel. I did tell you I was a data geek. But please don't be daunted by it, because this is only going to help you. It will help better align training and its surrounding content with what your learners actually want and need. Now, I do know that you have certain training that has to happen and it's not a need, such as compliance or GDPR. But there's still no reason why you can't tweak the training for certain audiences, or indeed consider whether they do actually need to do the training. I thought a little about some of the ways you could start segmenting your learners with the data you're already likely to have in your LMS. And then I've added some more kind of fun ideas of potential segmentation, depending on whether your LMS allows that or if you even hold the data. So let's start with audience identification and segmentation. What sort of audience pools could you create? So here's just a few ideas. Tenure and role. How long have they been with you? For example, the onboarding process and subsequent training intervention should look invariably different to those who've been with you a year. And same again for those who've been with you for 3 and 5. Imagine if you've been working in a business for 5 years and you have to take the same compliance training every single year. I know what I'd be doing. I'd be rolling my eyes, and probably because I would have thought about this after maybe year 1 or 2, I probably would have saved the answers somewhere too. So this is about treating people differently depending on where they are in your business, how long they've been here. You know, could you surprise them? Could you give them a badge for doing the same training several years in a row if you don't have the budget to revamp it? Give them something of value and make them feel valued. Make them feel like you understand what's going on here. Oh, sorry, excuse me. The next one I was thinking around things like job title, even. I know your LMS has that sort of stuff, or even if you just have department, not all roles are created equal. Does someone in IT really need to undertake the same training as the HR department? Does someone like me in marketing need to take the same stuff as the finance team? I don't know. Maybe there's some stuff like anti-money laundering that we all have to take, but do we need to be so prescriptive and so sheep dip approach with how we're doing training that we can't even try to understand different roles and different responsibilities and requirements? The other thing I was thinking as well is categories of interest. So this one might not always be possible for you through the LMS data, but you might be able to get this data in other ways around, the sort of things that your learners actually want to engage with as well. Things like Linda are doing very well for a reason, because businesses are starting to realize that staff not only want to develop themselves within a business, but outside of the business too. And things like what we do at Litmos Heroes is exactly the same as Linda, but much cheaper. And it gives your learners not only access to things like compliance training, GDPR, and all that wonderful stuff, but there's tons of stuff around leadership and management training, professional and personal development. Do your learners want to take this sort of stuff? Maybe not, but without asking the questions and without taking the time to give them a voice, you don't really know. Other things that I was thinking as well, things like location, so whether they're based in an office or if they're a remote worker might really dictate the sort of training that you can deliver to them, but the sort of training that they might engage with. Things like age as well could potentially be a demographic segment if you buy into generational theories around learning styles and how we consume content. And then some other stuff that I thought would be really cool, but I don't know if any LMS out there can do it. And if not, maybe I should start developing my own, is much more around kind of behavior-based stuff. So, if they've done something in the past, maybe, like Amazon does, like, because you like this, hey, why don't you do that type stuff? Or, if you can see that they've been on certain pages on the LMS in the past, can you start to push specific content that clearly aligns with things that they're perhaps interested in? So I know you're probably thinking, Ashley, get a grip. I do not have all the time in the world to be lurking around in spreadsheets and analyzing data and doing all this wonderful segmentation that you're talking about. And I understand that. I know that it's not something that is an integral part of your job, but it's something that I would really recommend you start to at least try and prioritize a little bit. If you don't have time to segment everything in the world, the one key recommendation that I can recommend is make sure you take away the fact that you take the time to understand and create learner personas. These are your key audience types that you're always going to be talking to, audience types that you're always going to be creating learning for. This, I promise, is a super positive step in the right direction and can really lead to great steps in personalization, such as learner journey mapping. Where are your learners going on your LMS? Where do they get stuck? What are specific personas doing when they're on the LMS? Could you make it easier for them? By using data to create more timely, appropriate, and relevant interventions for your learners, over time, you'll also begin to build advocacy. At the beginning of this, I talked about developing a culture of training in your business. And your learners will begin to trust that when L&D engage with them, it's appropriate and it's not a waste of their time. Basically, what we're doing is building future Glens, posting wonderful LinkedIn posts. So the next point is become a content marketing master. In marketing polls about the marketing technique that give the biggest uplift in the future, most marketers have said that content marketing has been the most popular, ranking one or two on the list, because marketers have learned that it works. So how can you make content marketing work for you? Ultimately, I know you want better engagement, don't we all? But I bet you don't have a learner engagement strategy in place. What's the fun, guys? Are you just hoping you can put some snazzy, you can't see my air quotes, but they are there, e-learning out there, and just magically everyone will love it and adore it and be like Glenn on LinkedIn? No. I've talked about creating timely interventions with your learners using all your shiny disseminated data, but what the heck are these interventions I speak of? In marketer speak, it's things like ebooks, guides, blog posts, infographics, webinars, social media, GIFs, videos, just a few things. And in L&D terms, they're your e-learning modules, the messages that you send about training, and the assets you use to drive the awareness of the training in the LMS. I took this quote from a blog I read last week, which I thought was super interesting. As a marketer, my audience has trained me well. I can tell by what information they want and how they want to receive it just by watching and monitoring their behavior. The key is captivating your audience, i.e. your learners, in 2018 is creating content that's not only engaging, but also smart, timely, and personalized. So to make content marketing work in L&D environments, you have to start thinking like your learners, and you have to start using data to do it. And you have to start considering rich media options. And really, you just have to modernize your L&D proposition a little bit more. Not much to do, right? So I understand that when considering creating loads of content, it seems really daunting. But remember what I said, this includes your e-learning modules, the email messages you send out to learners, and the supporting assets you use within your existing training environment. So let's just imagine, for example, that you've created a couple of key learning personas. We have one that is Gen Y, typically moves jobs every couple of years and is usually motivated by job perks, monetary rewards, and flexible working. Still lives at home, but is local to work, likes to play video games in their spare time, and has 3 different handheld devices. I know this sounds erroneous, but I promise it's important. Then you have another much more millennial type persona, craves stability in a workplace environment, typically motivated by recognition and stays in roles for between 4 to 8 years, as long as the pay and benefits are okay. Married, 2.4 kids, commutes to work, has a smartphone. Ask yourself, would your present training cater to the expectations and requirements of either or both of these typical learners in your organization? With many businesses contending with up to 4 generations of learner at work now, never has it been more important to interact with them differently. So how do you do that? Let's talk about your e-learning first, because if we don't fix that, it doesn't matter how much energy you put into getting people interested in doing it. When they end up doing it, they will despair and they will be extremely reluctant to do further training. It's the equivalent of me as a marketer putting loads of time and energy into driving my target audience to a core landing page to download an ebook or guide, for example. But when they get there, they realize the guide's crap. Maybe they download it, maybe they don't. But if the ebook was crap, like they thought it was, they absolutely fundamentally will not be coming back to my website anytime soon. Pure and simple. Always remember what's in it for me. So I'm going to put it out there. I know we've been saying it for years and years and years and years and years, but we're all still guilty of doing it. Please stop killing your learners with PowerPoint and the next button. Stop all of the things that don't stimulate the always-on, short attention span, hyper-connected learner that is well and truly immersed in the Internet of Things. Yes, it really is time to remove flash e-learning from your learning arsenal. Yes, it is absolutely time to revamp that SCORM file that was made in 2007. If you have that, please just get rid of it. Yes, you do really need to invest time in getting training right. Bonus points if you've already done steps 1 and 2 of this presentation and start actually aligning training against your personas. So let's go back to that learner engagement strategy I mentioned a little bit earlier. Based on my experience in marketing, there's a couple of core items within content marketing that have proven to better engage audiences. So if you have boring learning like, excuse my lovely playlist there. So if you have boring learning like this still in your business, it really does need to be replaced, and you really need to consider what to replace it with. So a couple of ideas here. Video and visual content. Yes, it's just one type of content, but my God, is it important. Its meteoric increase in popularity is fundamentally fueled by social media. Just look at the dominance of YouTube. We used to say that YouTube was the second biggest search engine, but a lot of data now shows that it's more popular than Google search based on number of users in a given month. You absolutely need to consider how you start using this medium in your business. I know you might not have big budgets, but there are plenty of easy and cheap ways to make videos now that we all have smartphones. Things like selfie videos being a part of your onboarding program, or even things like simple animations. You know, these aren't expensive. You know, I use them in marketing all the time. They cost anywhere between £1,500 and £3,000 to make a simple animation that's a couple of minutes long. Or prepare yourself for a shameless self-plug. Subscribe to Litmos Heroes for all of your video needs. Up to you how you use it, but video absolutely needs to become part of your strategy because it is proven to engage. Other things you can do as well is things like GIFs, visual media, rich media, even incorporating more imagery into what you do. I just wanted to show you guys something that kind of blew my mind the other day. I have this really cool image making program called Canva, which if you've never heard of it, check it out. It's a really, really easy way to make some rich media assets using templates, and it will save you hours and hours of time. Could be used in different environments, such as giving your emails that your LMS sends an uplift, using visual content to promote training on your intranet, Maybe even designing things like posters or mail outs. Now, hey, snail mail is not dead, I promise. And this sort of stuff can work really well with people who aren't always sat smack dab in the middle of a desk all day as well. So I know some of you probably have remote workers, engaging with them is not always a digital solution. Anyways, I digress. It has a new feature, which is all around GIFs. So I thought I'd make one around the GDPR campaign, which I've started, to see what impact it had. So I just wanted to show you this, which you can basically on LinkedIn as a marketer, I can see here how many impressions each post has. So I put a GIF up recently, which has had over 7,000 impressions. That's only been up for 5 days. I had this marketing webinar pinned at the top, which means it was the first thing that pretty much everybody sees. And that actually only had 5,000 impressions. Now, without a little bit more insight and research into this, we can't kind of say for certain that it was the GIF. But I did find it interesting that a 10-second video performed a lot better than something else that had been up there for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I do think that this is an indication that visual assets are a much more integral part of your strategy than perhaps you think. We all are very, very short attention spans these days. So rather than ignoring it, let's start tapping into it. And I know I've said it before, I know you think you don't have budget for it, and I've had the same problem. I've worked in marketing departments where we don't have a lot of money and we've had to be a bit more resourceful. But that's where the secret marketing sauce comes into play, and that is content repurposing. And this is something that I really strongly recommend. You can do this today. You have an absolute wealth of content that's just ready to be repurposing. It's all housed in your e-learning. You have tons of information. It's a wealth of knowledge. It's just all sat in your e-learning, just waiting to be repurposed. So repurposing is basically creating content using the same materials, but delivering them in different formats. The bonus point of that is you also then are creating content that's potentially catering for different personas as well. So, it's really something to look into. And I just wanted to give you an example of one I did. So here's an example. I wrote a guide. From that guide, I created 3 different blog posts, 2 infographics, a webinar, 2 subsequent slides I then turned into a separate ebook, countless social media images and stats, comparison tables. You name it, I made it. And all from one piece of source content. My biggest thing is, why put all your energy into creating one single thing and then just let the wealth of your efforts just lurk there? It's not always about volume. Well, actually, to be honest, it's never about volume in my opinion. I think it's much more about quality. Focus on quality here. So next point, automation. Let me be clear here. I'm not talking about you have 5 days to complete the mandatory GDPR course type of automation, which I know you all probably use, and that is an integral part of what you guys do. And I think you don't need to get rid of those things. But I'm much more talking about leveraging the data you've gathered, analyzed and segmented to create more timely, relevant interventions for your learners. Same as marketing, this stuff has to be useful to staff and fulfill the what's in it for me mentality. Perhaps they took a course last week. Why can't you maximize on memory retention by sending them a short refresher video? Because after following point 3, you're obviously now a content creation wizard, right? Yes. If you have the functionality in your LMS to deliver on many of the big data areas we've covered in point 2, here's the sort of just-in-time, audience-appropriate, relevant messages you can engage with. I do know that some of this stuff isn't possible right now. Again, perhaps I need to build an LMS. But I just wanted to really get us all excited about what's possible when we have good data in place and we have good automation in place. So there's a couple of good examples here. You did this, therefore you might like that. So the e-commerce industry has been maximizing sales in this way for years because it's a hugely effective way to get people back on your website or buying, or in your case, gets them back to the LMS with something relevant and appropriate for them based on the data that you already have. Another example. We haven't seen you. This could all be email marketing, by the way. We haven't seen you in a while. We missed you. Maybe they haven't logged in for a couple of weeks. You have a trigger that sends them an email. It makes them feel valued. It makes them feel important. It makes them feel like, actually, this company knows who I am and they actually want me to come back to the LMS. Okay. A couple of other things that you could be doing, leverage gamification and leaderboards in your business. This is something I expect some of you are doing with certain LMSs. For example, hey, Ashley, your colleague James just overtook your score. Why don't you come back to the LMS and beat him? Foster some healthy competition in your business, guys. Don't be afraid of it. It's not a bad thing. What about the equivalent of a cart abandonment email? you didn't quite get this module finished, come back within 24 hours and earn this badge. Incentivize them. Again, e-commerce knows what they're doing. They've been using data like this for years to optimize these sort of emails. And they work extremely well, especially if there's an incentive. You know, they offer 10% off and things like that. So think about how you could drive interest with your learners. And to be honest, when I've adopted this sort of strategy in the past by doing more personalized, data-driven, behavior-based marketing, I have seen extremely compelling results. So for my email marketing, I was getting around a 50% open rate and around a 25% click-through rate, which is just almost entirely unheard of. Most industry averages for this specific industry suggest anywhere between 19 and 22% open rate. You know, technology has made it easier for marketers to learn the behavior of their customers by making the most of micro moments. And smart technology will place you well ahead of the pack if you can leverage it. So make the most of these micro moments, but don't forget to keep it human, and always make sure to add a clear call to action. Make sure you know what you want. Make sure you let them know what you want them to do. More data. Optimize, optimize, optimize. I did tell you this would all be about data. Welcome to 2018, guys. We have a lot of data that we need to start using and leveraging. And if I use the word leverage one more time, please play bingo and win a gold star. So optimization is really important to continuously and iteratively improve your marketing efforts. So I wondered how many of you guys are actually doing it. I just wanted to do another quick poll with you guys just to kind of see if you're doing any level of analysis in your business. So we'll just kind of run that again just for a couple of minutes here. Not even minutes. Mere seconds. Okay, we'll just let it run for a couple more seconds. I'm delighted to see that we have a very strong 0% on the never category, which just makes me super happy. So just going to close that poll. So again, some interesting results here. So 38% of you saying that actually you monitor every single training program, with more than half of you saying sometimes, but it does depend on the importance of the training program. And 6% of you are rarely doing it. So, I mean, it's great to see that some of you are already doing this some of the time, because I think without optimization, you're really unable to understand what's working, and you're really unable to actually iteratively improve your performance over time. How do you know if your training is successful if you just pop it on your LMS and never look at anything apart from completion rates? And optimization, in my opinion, really does start with benchmarking. So if any of you guys haven't benchmarked your current performance, I really strongly suggest that you do that. It's the baseline of your current success. Don't be afraid if the results are underwhelming, because we're going to fix that with our own ongoing optimization. So it's fine. We need to start somewhere, don't we? And without this foundational understanding of current state of play, it's going to be really, really, really hard for us to evolve and move on from it. So optimization is all about a constant cycle of delivery. Devise, deliver, iterate, review, restructure, devise, deliver, iterate, review, restructure, over and over and over again. So how do you actually benchmark? Well, again, it does depend a little bit on your LMS as well as your e-learning, but you should at least be able to get things like completion rates in your LMS. And if you don't have Google Analytics on your LMS, can I please strongly suggest that you install it ASAP? This will give you plenty of data that you need for benchmarking, as well as give you really clear red flag indicators, such as things like high bounce rate on pages where people are maybe getting stuck. Basically a bounce rate is when Google says that someone went to that page, but they took no further action. Surely there was something you wanted your learners to do on those pages. Things like extremely short dwell time on pages as well. Maybe, again, you wanted them to do something on that page. What are they not doing? And even things like long dwell times, which can actually prove quite interesting, can actually be a real problem. So once you get some data from GA and your benchmarking, it's time to really start considering testing. So A/B testing is a really simple way. You could do things like just change the layouts of your LMS homepage, changing the layouts of course pages, changing the colors of buttons. This all helps for you to get a better understanding of what's working, so you can do more of that and less of what's not working. I know it sounds fundamentally simple, but I expect a lot of you aren't actually truly trying to take the time to understand the audience, profile them, and then actually leverage behavior data that even the most simple LMSs hold. It's time to make a change, guys. Which comes to my final point, which is all around customer experience, or in the L&D context, learner experience. So I wanted to include this because customer experience is quite the buzzword here in marketing these days. Everybody who's anybody is talking about it. So it felt foolish to not include it because, you know, marketing is L&D, right? So what is customer/learner experience? In commerce context, it talks about customer experience is the product of an interaction between an organization and a customer over the duration of their relationship. That's right. Learners are with you for life until they leave or something dramatic happens. So what are you doing to have ongoing connections with them, to foster advocacy, to really get them interacting with you? Well, if you've done points 1 to 4, 5, you're making a good start. So I just wanted to talk really about turning the word customer into a learner here. And this will give you a clear plan of action around creating a holistic, engaging learner experience. So I'm going to talk about observe, shape, and perform there at the bottom. This is borrowed from McKinsey, and I really just wanted to talk it through with you really quickly. Observe. Customer journeys, or learner journeys, consist of a progression of touch points that together add up to the experience that customers, learners, get when they interact with companies. Seeing the world as their learners do helps leading customers better organize and mobilize their employees around customer needs. Remember, we're replacing the word customer with learner here. Designing the learner experience requires reshaping interactions into different sequences, and though the effort may start small, soon entails digitizing processes, reorienting company cultures, and nimbly refining new approaches in the field. And perform. Rewiring a company to provide leading learner experiences is a journey in itself, often taking a long period of time and requiring high engagement from company leaders and key stakeholders. So it's not, I guess the thing I'm trying to say is this isn't a quick kill, guys. You know, I mean, the things like the content stuff you can do straight away, and I hope that it encourages you to start looking in your e-learning and start kind of creating some synergy with new content. But, you know, evolving things takes time. And you know, this isn't a short-term thing because we're stuck with systems and infrastructure that's been in place for years and years and years. But remember the key thing, which is always ask yourself, what do my learners want? And there's one final thing, really, for me, it all just leads back up to digital transformation. You know, we talked about digitization back there. This may well be that you guys might need a tech overhaul. It may be that you don't have the ability to do some of this stuff. And if you know, improving learner engagement and actually getting your employees to connect with you is an integral part of what you need to do in the next couple of years, then really you are only as powerful as the tools that you use, and it may well be time to look at overhauling things. You've also just got to accept that everything's changing very, very quickly. You know, the pace of change now with technology as it is evolving super duper quick, and you've just got to be prepared, strapped in, and ready to be a little bit more adaptive and adjust to change. And last but not least, really, you must be the driver of change. You know, this has to come from you guys. L&D is an integral part of a business. If you want to change the culture of training in your business, it has to come from you guys first and foremost. You know, it's not going to be easy. There's going to be absolutely hurdles everywhere. But as long as you're always thinking about the learner and your audience and every single thing you do, you'll be on a good road to success. That's everything from me. I really hope that you found that useful. I do apologize that we've run over a little bit, but I seem to be talking a lot more than I thought I was going to. But I just wanted to kind of open it up and see if you guys did have any questions, and then I can kind of do my best to answer them for you. Let me just see. Chris Glock, it's not a recording. It's definitely live. So someone's asking, yes, you will receive the recording and slide deck at the end, Samantha. So I've recorded this today, and we'll be emailing everything out. I'll probably be emailing out tomorrow. Nicholas Beach, the software that I was using to make the gift is called Canva, C-A-N-V-A. It's very cost effective. And I really strongly recommend taking a look at it because it just gives you loads of templates. You can just put your fonts in, put your color template, put your colors in. And it's an amazing resource. I love it. Great. Well, if you guys don't have any specific questions, what does rich media mean? Rohan is asking. What rich media to me is anything that's kind of, you know, more visual based assets. So stuff that is kind of video-based, GIFs, you know, visuals that aren't flat, stuff that kind of is eye-catching and a little bit more diverse than just, you know, your kind of generic cookie cutter off-the-shelf visuals, I suppose. So that's when I say rich media, that's the sort of stuff that I mean. Nina's asking me, what are your recommendations for developing digital learning badges? I think ultimately it comes down to your LMS and the ability to actually deliver that first and foremost. But ultimately, you know, make sure they're on brand with your business. So talk to your marketing department. They'll have guidelines in place around color palette, visual style, et cetera, et cetera. Make sure that it feels appropriate. But, you know, I don't know, Litmos Heroes is like a fun brand, right? So we, you know, we're not afraid to kind of be cheeky and have some fun. But, you know, I think it's time to accept that learning needs to be a little bit more fun to get people engaged. Don't be afraid to do stuff that's interesting with learning badges. And, you know, if you have Canva, you'll be able to develop them super, super easy, to be honest. So, you know, you don't always need PowerPoint and things like that to create nice visual looking assets. Cool. Well, I think if unless anybody has any other questions, I think I'll end it there. I really thank you all for joining me. I hope you found this useful. I've got my LinkedIn details on there. If you do have any questions and you want to follow up, please feel free. Karen, I will pick up your question separately. If you ping your email in the question, I'll email you separately about it. Thank you very much. Cool, guys. Have a great day. I hope it's the sun shining where you are. It is here in Brighton. Enjoy your day. Thanks very much, guys.